Um, Learning how to use social media in your own way is a big thing as well. I feel like there's a lot of people that have their own brands on social media. Like certain people use social media differently. I feel like Fisher's a great example because you could just wave your hand. That dude's a legend. I love that guy so much. But finding a way to do it in your own way and in an honest way, at least that's the way I try to do it, is what I think will bring people together or back to your music. Because if you're just going on your Twitter all the time and posting like, oh yeah, a new song, or like, oh this, oh that, oh whatever, or you have like Luca Lesh who posts lots of funny tweets. That's his brand, and that's how I would relate him on Twitter. If somebody asks, what's Luca like? Or like, what's Sean like? That's how I would see him if I was asked how he was on Twitter, or what is his persona. So finding yourself, and you can create a character the same way that Fisher has done. Actually, I've never met him, so maybe that's just how he is, and that's even better. But finding your own way to be honest or be yourself, I think is better than trying to just do the same, like, oh, here's tickets, here's this, here's that. Eventually it gets monotonous and people like tune out to it, even if the music's great. Or at least that's what I do. I just eventually it gets boring. I need something to like keep me involved and keep me invigorated. So I try to take how I think about music and give that to everybody that follows me on Twitter or Instagram or whatever, just doing something different, but also constantly being myself. Yeah, that kind of ties into a lot of this, but a different way to get your music heard is like sending it out to different blogs or sending it to friends or producers, or even when I was in an earlier state, I would email agents and other people, which I realize now is probably not the best idea. Like an agent deals with the shows and deals with getting everything set up on the show side of things. So me sending my music to an agent is probably kind of just spam email to them. And I didn't realize that until, a couple of years ago when I actually did get an agent. But I would constantly send music out to those type of people. And I realized that's probably not the best way to do it. But sending it out to blogs, sending it out to other friends, building a community of friends that are, whether they're bigger than you, smaller than you, just people that you can relate with that also produce, to get as much support or even advice from other people. And on top of that, sending it to blogs also really helps, because I remember sending my music to blogs constantly and never getting a reply back. And you can follow up, maybe they don't reply back to that song, but if you get 99.9% no's and you get 0.0 or 0.01% yes, it's the 0.01% that actually matters. Because if somebody eventually starts listening to it, you could send it out to 100, 1,000, 10,000. You can send however many emails it is or that it takes. But once one person comes back to you and either gives you feedback, like maybe they don't support you on the blog, but maybe they say, yeah, this isn't for us this time, but keep sending us your next stuff. At least you're getting a response from somebody that knows the name now, or at least they understand, like, oh, they're really persistent about it. Maybe I didn't like this release, but keep sending us more, because maybe we'll post it at some day or a later date, or a different song or a different EP or a different remix or whatever you're doing. Eventually somebody will answer, and it'll just give you a little bit of, there's a word for it, give you a little bit of ambition to keep going, I guess, or a little bit more, like fuel your drive a little bit. I ended up having a really, really big remix for Alice in Wonderland for a track called You Don't Know, that was just a bootleg that literally only had 21 tracks in it, and 2 of those tracks were the original song. I really didn't do all that much other than the drop and added a couple brass sounds here and there. But as she grew in Australia and in the US and then eventually the world, I was able to grow with that song and with her growth. So remixing songs is a great way to get. Obviously, the originals also help you a lot, because you need to have some, or I believe you need to have some standalone content to prove yourself, either as a songwriter or as like a whatever genre you're producing, just showing like, this is me, this is all me, or this is me, with a friend of mine, and this is what we came up with, instead of like, oh, it's just a remix. But when I was coming up, remixes were so helpful. Like I did a remix for Meek Mill, and that was supposed to be official, but it was a month before the big Meek Mill Drake beef had happened, so that fell off the table. But all of these remixes just kind of helped branch out. And on top of that, helping with the charts that I was talking about earlier, it was so easy for people to be like, oh, like Drake and Meek Mill, the new big song that we like listening to, but there's an electronic remix of it. Let me listen to that. And then they show their friends or people keep listening to it. And it blows up a lot faster than, hey, have you heard this random kid named Vincent? Like, here's one of his songs. I'm really about it. And they're like, well, what's the catch? There's nothing for them to tie into that and be like, oh, well, I'll keep to this, unless they go through and they love your original music and they go back through back catalog and love that stuff as well. But the remixes are what I believe catches people's eyes and ears a lot faster, especially at an earlier stage than just original music. Creating a brand kind of ties back into the way that I use social media, or I try to use social media and just be honest with people, where your brand kind of encompasses everything about you. It's not just the music you make, but it's the persona that you live, whether it's you or whether you create a persona out of yourself. The way that you carry yourself at a show, whether you're talking to people, whether you're like kind of hidden and you have a mask on, it can just kind of tie into everything. But trying to hone in who you are and what you want to portray will really help solidify everything together, especially with art direction too. That's why I put the artwork for my EP up there, because once I figured that out, like I have a rose tattoo fairly similar to that one, and I definitely want to get more tattoos, but I feel like that's the type of art that I would, hang in my house or like have a bunch of tattoos of. So I can look at that and say like, yeah, that's me. And I feel like in maybe the music it can relate to it, maybe the music can't relate to it, but in my eyes, I think everything just ties together between the visual aspect and myself, the way that I carry myself, and all of those things together make up your brand. And that's, I believe, why people get excited or get interested in following you, even before the music.